Now, once we have our setup done, it's time to write our first code. That's right. So finally, we are going to run our first Java code here. Now for that, we have to open our editor. So of course, in the last video, we have discussed that we are going to use VS Code. So let's open VS Code here. So I will say code. Okay, so our VS Code is all set to write our first code. You can see it will give you a welcome screen when you do it. And then it will ask you the preference. Do you want a light color, dark high contrast, or light high contrast? I would say go for dark because it's good for development. It will not strain your eyes at least. So let's close this, get started, and this is how your VS Code will look like. Okay, simple stuff, right? Now what we'll do is, first of all, where you will get your folder. So you will see your folders on the left hand side. So this is where you will get your project, all the files which you want to work with. So you'll be having that here. Now, of course, in the upcoming tutorials, we'll be using a different IDE, and I want you to get used to different IDEs when you work with. So on the left hand side, we can see we have an Explorer here. And then if you want to search something, we have it here. If you want to add some extensions, which we are going to do later, we'll add certain extensions to work with. At this point, we don't need any extensions, so just keep it blank. I mean, no need to install anything here. In my machine, I already have something on some other accounts, but on this account, I don't think so. Anyway, and then if you want to run and debug, you will find the option here. Now, why do we run? Of course, we know why to run, right? But why do we debug the application? Yeah, we'll see that later. At this point, let's open our files of Explorer here. And this is where I want to create my first project. Now, how do we create a project? Now, project will be a very broad term at this point. What we are going to do is we will create some files. And of course, when you merge these files and libraries, you create a project. At this point, we are not working with any external libraries. At this point, we are just going for a simple files. Okay, hello world, right? So for that, what we'll do is we'll click on open folder because all these files will be part of one particular folder. So we'll click on open folder and it will give you certain options where you want to save this. So I will save this on my desktop itself. Okay, in fact, on my desktop, I want to create one more folder. So I will say open folder again. Inside desktop, I want to create a folder here. We'll say I will have a short name. We'll say course, create, and open. So you can see we got our course folder here. What I will do is I will zoom inside my VS Code so that you can see everything properly. And again, the recommendation would be to watch this on a bigger screen so that you can actually understand each and every line, because on mobile sometime you will be seeing a font size and a small font. Okay, I don't want to see this page every time I open my VS Code, so I will just uncheck this and click on close here. And let's create our first file, and this is where you are going to write our first code, right? So we have already seen how do we install JDK, how do we check the version on the terminal. Can you do that in this? So VS Code itself has a terminal here, so you don't have to open the external terminal. Of course, if you're using Windows, you will be having an option of command prompt. But let's click on terminal here, and you can see we have an option of terminal. Click on this one. Okay, this is where you can enter your commands, whatever commands you have. The same command will write here. So we'll say Java version, and you can see I have Java 17 in this machine, and Java 18 is already released, but then Java 17 is a LTS version. So when you say LTS, it means long-term support, right? So we'll use that. And we'll also check if my Java C is working. You can see Java C is also there. Now Java C basically stands for Java compiler, as we discussed before. So we need both. We need Java to run the application. We need Java C to compile the code, right? Okay, cool. So we got the terminal as well. I will just minimize this a bit. Okay, so now let's create our first file. So what we are going to do is we'll click on this particular file here and we'll name this as hello.java. Now there is something you have to remember. Whenever you create a Java project, you have to make sure that you give an extension, or Java files basically, you have to give an extension with .java. Now different languages have different extension. When you talk about C, we say .c. When you say C++ language, we say .cpp. When you say JavaScript, we use .js. In the same way, in Java, we say .java. Simple stuff, right? So you got our file here. Now VS Code will give you some suggestions. We'll ask you to install some extensions for Java, and we'll click on recommendation. Okay, it is asking us extension pack for Java, which will help us. It will give you some options and extra stuff. Again, this is just an advantage which you get from VS Code. Again, not required if you don't want to install this extension. I think I should go for it. We also have IntelliCode for AI assistance, but yeah, we'll stick to this extension. Again, in your machine, you don't have to install this. There's no compulsion. You can still write your Java code, but maybe it will give you some suggestions and stuff in between. Let's see. let's close this and let's write our code. So extension will be installing behind the scene. You don't have to worry about it. So basically, how do we write our Java code? It's very simple actually. First of all, the question is, what do you want to do in this code? Do you want to create a game, or do you want to build a rocket which will go to Mars? I will not be doing those extra stuff. What I will do now is I will create a very simple file which will print hello world. I know. That's how you start a programming language, right? Is irrespective of which language you're learning, the first thing you do is you print hello world. So here I want to print hello world. Now how do we do that? See, if you are coming from other languages, let's say Python, right? So what you do is, if you want to print hello world in Python, you can write only one line. And maybe Java is not that famous for simplicity at the start. Of course, when you build a bigger project, Java is much more structured compared to the languages, but then to start with, it's not that easy, so just bear with me. Okay, so what we are going to do now is, if you want to just experiment with Java, if you want to play some, if you want to test some code or stuff, we have an option which was introduced in Java 9. So basically you can write your code in one line and you can get the output. Example, so even before we jump to hello world, let me show you something. So we have a concept of J shell in Java. So it was introduced in Java 9 as I mentioned. So you can open your terminal, and here let me just increase the size a bit. So what I will do is I will click on J shell, or I will type J shell, and it will give you a J shell prompt. Okay, now J in this case is Java, so it should make sense now. Okay, so what you can do in J shell is, if you want to experiment something, example, why do we write code? Why do we build applications? So to solve problems, right? Now it can be a very simple problem as well. Example, if you want to add two numbers, it's very simple. You can say 2 plus 3, and if I say enter, you can say we got 5, right? So we got the answer, which is 5. What if you want to do a subtraction? You can do that. So 9 minus 6, and you can see we got 3. So this is working. But what if you want to print something? So in this case, what you can do is, whenever in Java, if you want to do something, we use something called methods. At this point, you don't have to remember methods and what the definition is. Just remember that there is a concept called methods using which you can do something. The only thing you have to remember is, if you want to do something, you need methods. In the same way, if you want to do something here, I want to print something, right? So we have to use a method called print. It is an inbuilt method in Java, so you don't have to worry about it. Just use it. It will work. So whenever you call methods, you have to pass the values. So I want to say, hey, print. But then it will say, okay, I will print, but what you want me to print? So you can mention that in this bracket. So in this round brackets, you can mention, I want to print hello world. Now, if you want to just print a number, let's start with that first. So let me just print a number, which is 6. And in Java, there's one more thing. You have to put a semicolon at the end. It should work in this, but then remember this. At the end, put a semicolon. That's how you mention, hey, something is getting ended. So we got a semicolon there. And now what you can do is, let's try to run this code. Now, errors, right? Errors are very important in your life, in your programming life, basically. You see, you got the error. It says, cannot find a symbol called print. It's not working. Okay, cool, no problem. So let me just clear the screen. Clear command is not working. Ignore that. We'll say. So let me open JShell once again, and because I just want to keep it on top. So what I will do now is, if I want to print something and I want to print a value 6 at the end, I want a semicolon as well. Now Java says, if you want to call print, print belongs to something, right? So when I say it is available inside Java, so the statement you have to always mention is system.out.println. See, there will be a point where I will talk about what is system, what is out. At this point, it's very difficult to understand. So just bear with me. This is a statement which you have to use if you want to print something on the console. Okay, so if I want to print something here, just say system.out.print and whatever value you want to pass. Say enter, you can see we got 6. But what if you want to print hello world? I don't want to print 6. So if you want to repeat the same statement, of course you can type, or you can click on the up arrow. It will give you the option. Now here, if you want to print hello world, you have to put that in double quotes. So whenever you want to do something with text, see, numbers are easy to use. You can simply say 6. But if you want to work with a text, you have to put that in double quotes, the way I've done it here. So in this double quotes, you have to mention hello world. Right? That's how you start a programming journey, right? I will say enter, and you can say we got hello world. What if I want to print something else? Which is very simple. You can say double quotes, Navin Reddy, Telesco, and if I say enter, you can say we got the text. So whatever you want to print, just put that in double quotes and it should work. And you can see we are getting the output as well. So cool. So we are able to do this with the help of JShell. But will it work in this? If I try to copy this, in fact, why to copy when we can type it? So let's type system.out.println. .out.println, and here we'll say hello world, and let's give a semicolon at the end. It was working on JShell, but when you work with Java files, because this is how you build a project, right? JShell is not to build projects. It's just for the experiment. If you are learning a language, it is good. But if you want to make it work, you can do, if you want to build a big application, say .java file, and write your code there. So let's compile this code. Now, how do we compile? Okay, so there are two steps you have to follow. First, when you write a code, you have to compile the code and then you can run the code. So to compile the code, you can say Java C in the terminal, and let me just increase the font a bit. So you have to say Java C and then you have to mention the file name. So first you have to make sure that you are in a correct folder, which is course. So you can see that this is the folder we have, and then you have to mention Java C and then the file name. The file name in this case is hello.java. Click on enter. Oh, we got an error. Okay, so it says something is missing, something else was expected and you are giving this is not working. So this is not how you write applications or code in Java file. We have to do something else. But at this point we have understood, right? How do you work with JShell? So you can, if you want to do something with JShell, just write a code, it will work. If you want to add two numbers, it will work. You can't do that here. We have to do something extra. And what is that something? That we'll see in the next video.